when we start advancing in the spiritual path, then everything looks and feels amazing, right? I think many of you can identify. But after some time, and it could be a matter of days or weeks or months, then suddenly a new state appears. It's like a state that's opposite of the initial state that we had when we entered spirituality, right? A state of darkness, a state of emptiness, maybe, of lack of faith in the path that we chose. Well, even though it does seem like it's random and it suddenly this appears and disappears and reappears, etc., I guarantee it is not random, and I guarantee that there is a science behind this mechanism. So in our session today, we're going to break down the science of these two opposite states in spiritual development, ascents and descents, and we're going to explain it according to an authentic wisdom that goes back almost 6,000 years ago. And we'll understand the structure behind these two opposite states and how these states are necessary in order to evolve in spirituality. So let's get ready and let's dive into it. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, my name is Gil Shir, and this is Kabbalah Explained Simply, and today we're going to talk about ascents and descents in spiritual development. So, who before we even start, who already knows what I'm talking about when I say ascents and descents in spirituality? So I'd like you to write in the chat. Let's have some fun here. Let's try and describe what an ascent in spirituality is. So, you know what, even before that, already start thinking about it though. So, if you came to spirituality, then it means that you wanted to find something more in life, right? It means that you had this desire inside of you that was pulling you to search for something that wasn't satisfied with what it found in this world, in this material world, the job, the family, the money, the power. It wasn't satisfied by any of that, and it wanted to break through to something beyond. And if you're in a spiritual path, then it means that you had this craving for unlocking that concealed layer in reality. And let's say you found it. Let's say you're here and you found Kabbalah, or even if you're in some spiritual path, then what you feel is amazing, right? It's like you have this high. Let's call that state an ascent. Let's try and describe that state together. So let's get the drawing board open and let me know if you can see it. Here it is. Okay, so let's try and define that state, which is called an ascent. So what's included in that state, and I'd love to see your feedback on this. Let me grab open the screen so I can actually see your feedback. Here it is. Ooh, there we go. All right. Okay, great. So we already have some answers coming in. So A, burning desire. Great. Joyful. Perfect. Not yoyful, joyful. Excellent. What else? And this, just feel free to share. We can see. I assume you're not talking about the ascent, but that you can see the board. But I'll also say, yes, the fact that you can see is definitely part of the ascent. That state, I would say, it all makes sense. What's all of it? Everything. Everything makes sense. Everything you come across, everything you encounter, it just all fits in, it all falls into place. Your life makes sense, your experiences make sense, the people around you and how you interact with them, it just all makes sense, right? And that brings you to feel joy, you know. Everything is great, I'd add here. Everything is great. Right? Let's see what else. Where are you guys? There you are. Connected, inspired. Right? Sense of greatness. Right? Not self-greatness, but just an overall sense of greatness of reality, right? I know that's what you mean, Francine, right? So it's like a general sense of greatness, that things are just great. And I don't mean great on a material, I mean like they're great, right? There's one word actually that describes all of this. That word in Kabbalah is called light. So all of these states of the ascent, of your awakening when you came to spirituality, it's a beautiful state, it's a beautiful sensation, it's everything you wrote, and it's much more, and I'm sure that you're going to write more, so keep writing. All of that is, we can call that state an ascent, right? Okay, now let's see how long you guys have been around in spirituality, because the next question is, let's try and define and describe in the same way, write it in the chats, that state called a descent. Alright, so let's see what that descent looks like. Alright, so what's in that descent? Let me start. It doesn't make sense. What yesterday made perfect sense today, it's not only that it doesn't make sense how yesterday it made sense and today it doesn't. It just doesn't. That's some funny words there. Okay, so it doesn't make sense. What else do we have here? We have, I'll say limited potential. So it's limited potential, right? What else? I'm sure you've already started writing things. Judgment. Interesting, Sandy, that you chose that word, judgment. How did you get to that word? I mean, is it from Kabbalah, or is that just a feeling? So, judgment, lack of sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, right? Ego. Interesting choice of words too, Rosie. Absolutely. Ego. Separateness. Correct. Okay, so I see that many of you have been around already in spirituality for at least some time, if you're able to describe this. Possessions by harsh emotions, correct. Weakness, yep. Weakness, all right. So in the ascent, you feel strong. You feel like this infinite energy inside. And in a descent, you feel weak, like you don't have strength. What happened? Where did it all go? Correct. Weakness. Yes, fearful, lack of self-confidence. There's no live on Facebook, unfortunately. That is a true descent. Let me try and see, take a quick look at that. Just let me pause for 1 second just to see if we can have let me just fix the let me just fix the Facebook thingy. Let's give it 1 minute. So our friends and students on Facebook will not be disconnected. Let's just quickly try and fix that. Um, 30 seconds. Go live now. Okay. Okay. Rachel, on my side it sees that that we are live, I think. But okay, here we go. So you should be able to find it now. The live button just clicked on there, and now it's broadcasting on Facebook too. All right, good. So if you just joined on Facebook, then we're defining two states in spirituality and what they feel like. So ascents and descents. All right, so let's see what else. Okay, I think we can sum up all of these states. So we talked about ascents, here they are, and now we're defining descents. And if we want to define descents in one word, then we can. And that word is darkness. That would define everything in descents. So I have a question for you now. Okay? So the question goes like this. I mean, I know that some of you, if not many of you, have experienced both sides because you were able to reflect the sensations of them. Now, the question goes like this. While you experience either of these states, did you feel like you were choosing to be in that situation, that you had choice there, that you had even free choice, or that it was like you were handed these states and placed in them involuntarily? So please write in the comments what your answer is. So did you feel like you were choosing either of these states, whenever, whatever state that you felt that you were in, or that you were like picked up and put in that state? You wake up and you're like this, the next morning you wake up and suddenly you're like this. So I'd love to hear how you experienced it. And in the meantime, I want to tell you that even though these two opposite states seem like they're completely, they're opposite. Opposites are usually parallel. They can't connect, right? But in fact, these states are completely connected. They're intertwined, and understanding the relation between these states is the key to ascending in spirituality. Okay, so let's see what you guys have in the chat. Okay, so Annie says involuntarily, so does Lucas. Butterflies in May says handed these states like a puppet. Tino says, Sandy says they felt handed. Artist felt placed in these states very much involuntarily. Durandi says it feels like it's my fault for being in darkness. Okay, Daniel says placed in, etc. Oh, great, I see that you're all kind of active there in the chats. And okay, I think everyone here agrees, and if you don't agree, then right. But whatever state you're in, it feels like someone turned a switch and now you're like this, and the switch again was turned, now you're like this. So if that's how it works, then there's really no freedom of choice, right? When you're in one state or the other state, then you have no choice. You feel that way. It's like if you're really, really thirsty, do you have a choice but to want to drink? I'm not saying if to drink or not, but to want to drink. You don't have a choice. If you're thirsty, then you want to drink. That's it. There's no question to it. So you don't have a choice to want to drink if you're thirsty, right? And you don't have a choice to feel these emotions if you're in that state. It's like they just appear. And although you might be thinking that this session, the purpose of this session is to learn how to maybe remove these feelings, that's not the purpose of this session. The purpose of this session is to understand how the ascents and descents are connected and how they are fundamental particles, building blocks of evolving spiritually. And if you understand, then yes, by transitioning from one state to the next, you will go from a descent to an ascent, of course, but that's not the purpose here. So before I further explain the science behind this and how these descents and ascents are connected, I would like to read a short article by Kabbalist Rabash, Rav Baruch Shalom Halevi Ashlag, who is a great Kabbalist, who was a great Kabbalist. He's the teacher of my teacher, Kabbalist Dr. Michael Lightman, and I study his articles almost daily. So let's grab open the article and let's read it together. It's not long. All right. So the article is called Associating the Quality of Mercy with Judgment. It's written by, like I said, Rabash, Kabbalist Rabash, 1973. So he says this: since man is born out of Bechina Dalet, the fourth phase, which is from the vacant space, and her aim is to receive in order to receive, if he remains this way, only from this route, it would be utterly impossible to turn her into working in order to bestow. Hence, when the quality of bestowal merges with him, namely the quality of mercy, by this he has the remedy of in order to bestow, which can invert him. So let's try and break this down a little bit. All right. So he says here that the initial state is the fourth phase, from the vacant space. What that means is that we were created initially with a desire to receive, which is basically, to put it simply, ego. Right? And so let's draw this as, let's put this like this. Okay. Now, everyone lives within the ego. It's not good nor it's bad. It is what it is. It is the fabric of reality, the will to receive, the ego. And at a certain point of a person's evolution, and I don't mean like the 70, 80, 90 year life, I mean the evolution of the eternal point they have inside, which has been in existence actually since the very beginning of time, but let's say since the evolution of the human, of human beings. Because what you have in you, that desire that awakened in you for spirituality, isn't something that emerged in your lifetime. It's something that was preparing and ripening over thousands of years internally and over thousands of incarnations. And the finding of spirituality, let's call it rising to this first spiritual degree. To that first spiritual, it's not yet a spiritual degree, but let's say it's a spiritual awakening, it's a spiritual state. Now, obviously, that would be felt as an ascent. Now, what Rabash writes here is that in order to further climb in spirituality, then he says, if he remains this way in his ego, it would be utterly impossible to turn her into working in order to bestow. In other words, in order to rise a degree, and every time to rise a degree, the previous degree is also considered ego, right? So this degree would be considered ego in comparison to the next spiritual degree. But if there has to be connection between the degrees, right? So even imagine, you want to climb a ladder, and you're here. You can't just you can't climb it if you can't reach it, if you don't have contact with at least the lowest rung of the ladder, right? So there has to be connection. And by the way, this goes for everything in life. Anything you aspire to in life, there has to be some connection between where you are now and that state you aspire to. So if a desire has not awakened in you whatsoever, let's say you have no desire to be a football player, for example, then it means that internally there's no connection between the state you're in and becoming a football player. But if you have a desire to, let's say, get in shape, be healthy, for example, then that desire of yours and that state of you being healthy, they're already connected to a certain level. There's already some connection there. If there wasn't, then that desire wouldn't awaken in you. So it's the same in spirituality. Between the lower degree and the upper degree, there is actually very, very tight connection. So the connection goes like this. The higher degree is this one over here. And it lowers itself. GE is Galgalta Enaim. It's also called Bina. You can call it that. And it lowers itself to a state called Achap, which the Achap is at the same level of the previous the previous, you could say, head of the degree. So the next degree is always linked through this achap to the higher degree of the previous state. Now, this achap potentially, which is also called malchut, is in potential, it's an elevator, it's a lift. So you're here now and you want to rise to this next degree, and the only way you can do it is if you have connection between the state you're in now and the next degree. And the connection is this achap. This is the connecting point. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The achap is also called the posterior of the next degree. And this state is a state of darkness. This state is a state of light. But this state, actually I should draw it inside, over here, this is a state of darkness. Now, how can that be? How can this next degree be a state of darkness? Well, in fact, it's not a state of darkness, but it's felt that way because from the lower degree, you don't yet have the spiritual vessel to contain the light of the next degree. So it's felt as darkness because the light does not enter the vessel, the kli. Let's read a little bit more from Rabash, and we'll keep going. So he says this: we should understand this, since we see that it is human nature that he is immersed in worldly lusts, meaning the ego. It's natural to be in the ego. It's what I said before. It's not good and it's not bad. It's just natural. The ego is our natural state. Sometimes he has an awakening and desires to achieve dvikut, adhesion with the Creator. Creator is simply this upper force, this surrounding force, So don't imagine it as some religious entity or a bearded man sitting above looking at you like in The Simpsons. It's none of that. The Creator is simply the force of nature. It's the infinite potential, the unlimited potential that lies around us, that we don't perceive. We only perceive a very small fraction of it. That small fraction is called this world. So he has an awakening and desires to achieve adhesion, connection with that general force of nature. And at that time, we see that during the awakening, we have no work to emerge from corporeality, and all our thoughts and desires are about spirituality. So it's actually, Rabbi Shir is writing just what you guys described before. That's why I said you must have some experience, right? When you're in that state of awakening, then there's no work. It doesn't require effort in order to aspire for that state. It's like a state that you're placed in, that you're given, right? Let's keep going. All right, and when we descend from our degree and return to our bad ways of thinking, only about corporeal matters, why does he call that bad ways of thinking? Because this world, in comparison to spirituality, is considered bad. It's driven by the opposite force of light. It's actually the world of darkness. In fact, when the authentic texts write about these states, even when the word hell is described and all these demons, etc., they're merely talking about this world, the world that we are in now. That is in comparison to spirituality. That is the world of darkness. It is what is called Gehenom, hell. It's not some place you go to when you die. It's simply being immersed in the ego. That is the worst possible state that can exist, that exists in reality. Okay, so let's keep reading. It can be said, I'm over here, it can be said that when the Bchina Daled, when that fourth state is revealed in him, I'm not explaining now what the Bchina Daled is, but he explains it here, namely when he craves something, he cannot overcome his inherent will to receive. But when the quality of mercy awakens in him, which is the power of bestowal, then, too, he has no freedom of choice, but to aspire for spirituality. So Rabbi Shir is just deepening what you described before as just being placed in one state and the other state. It's like I said before, if you're thirsty, then you have no choice but to want to drink. And if you're immersed in the quality of mercy, the power of bestowal, then you have no choice but to aspire for spirituality. And when Bchina Daled, when that state of the Malchut, of the darkness, and I think, who said it before, judgment, it's actually what it's called. This state is called also judgment. When it awakens, then he turns astray again. Again, because he has no choice. That's the only thing that one can do, is connect. We'll get to that in a second, actually. I want to explain a little bit further about this. So, whenever you're in the state of darkness, then you have no choice but to feel that way. And whenever you're in the state of light, then you have no choice but to feel that way either. Now, you might be thinking, okay, wait a minute, but in this state here on the left, then there must have been a state of light there, because that's the upper degree of before. And that's correct. There was a state of light. But in spirituality, a state is, in potential, it's momentary. It doesn't last. Because if it lasts, then it means that you're not evolving. And in spirituality, there is only growth. So if you would remain in this state of light, and that's what students sometimes say, I want to be in that state of like we described, the sensations that awaken in the ascent. I want to be in that state of an ascent my entire spiritual development. I want to feel amazing and appreciate spirituality and have this, this understanding of everything and this pleasure in life. And the reason why it can't last is because if it does, then you stay in that state. You're not evolving at all. So in order to push you to evolve, then the next degree knocks at your door, right? And that's when the darkness appears. So what do you have to do then in that case? What do you have to do when this state of darkness appears? The answer is you need to cling to it, not to the darkness. You need to cling to that state which is only perceived as darkness. It's not in fact darkness, it's light of the higher degree. It's light of the next level. And you need to cling to it as if you already perceive it as the light of the next degree, even though it's felt as darkness, but in fact it's not. And that means that you need to connect to it not from your ego, but from a different place. From a spark within you that goes along the entire spiritual path. This point in the heart that gradually evolves into what is called in Kabbalah a kli, a vessel. And every degree, it's like it becomes again a spark. It becomes nothing. It can't contain light. So in comparison to this degree, then it's already a vessel because it can contain light. But in comparison to the next degree, it becomes as if a spark again. It's in fact not a spark. It's in fact potential for an even greater vessel that can contain greater light. But it's perceived as darkness because it's only felt through a spark. Now, Rabash explains here how you can climb this, use this elevator. By the way, this structure, it keeps going on and on, right? So, as you can probably already guess, the next degree, and the next degree. And again, this whole thing starts over again. This time, this is the achap of the higher degree, and this is the galgalta enaim, and this which was perceived as light is now perceived as darkness, which is the posterior of the next degree. And what happens is you end up climbing degree 1, degree 2, degree 3, etc. And this mechanism, this science, is the same mechanism that is used from degree 0 until the final state of correction, the 125th degree. Now, I said a few words before about how to actually climb from degree to degree. And I said that you need to adhere to that next state, to that state which seems to be darkness, but in fact it's not. And you need to cling to it as if you already perceive it as light. It's a difficult game. It sounds easy, but it's counterintuitive. It's the opposite of what the ego is telling us to do. Because if we listen to the ego, then we're driven, first of all, as we said before, we're driven without freedom of choice. Second, we're driven into a path of pain. Because if we follow the ego, then the ego will say, no, this next state is dark, it has nothing in it, it has no fulfillment in it, forget about it, leave it, don't even try to aspire for it, it's not for you, maybe it's for other people, maybe you're not successful enough, maybe they are, maybe for them it works, but for you it doesn't, look how you feel. That's the ego playing with us. And that ego is pulling us into a path of pain. Because eventually, every single person has to rise to the next degree. And if we go the ego's way, then what's happening is we're simply going into a state of... we remain in a state of darkness, even though we might find some psychological fulfillments that will momentarily cover it up and say, okay, now I feel better. But as long as you don't keep going to the next degree, then this state of darkness shines. And if you don't follow up when you should, then the system, nature, and we see this actually everywhere around the world, nature starts pushing us to awaken towards the next degree, and it pushes us if it pushes us from behind, it's painful. It's pain. It's not the same. It's not pain that advances you in spirituality. Pain does not advance you in spirituality. There are methods that people create pain for themselves to advance. No, Kabbalah does not advance you through pain, only through greatness and through pleasure and through fulfillment and through increasing your desire. But if you don't follow up when the state of darkness appears, then the system simply responds, like any system that aims for equilibrium. So the equilibrium here is evolving to the next degree. That's the state of balance. And failing to do so, it creates a negative feedback loop from the system, which is felt as pain. It's called the path of pain in Kabbalah. Now, it's difficult to do what I said. I know it's difficult. I said that you've got to cling to that state of darkness. You've got to cling to it as if you already attain the light in it, as if you already see it as great. How do you do that? It's very easy to say, but how do you cling to that next state that feels completely opposite from what your ego describes to you as good? So how do you do it? So let's take a look at the final paragraph that Rabash writes. Let's see, there it is. Okay. So he says this: thus, the only thing that one can do is connect to books and authors. In other words, to a teacher, to lessons, to an environment. That's what Rabash is saying here. To connect to an environment that deals with the desire to bestow. Then the quality of mercy awakens in him, and he will yearn for spirituality without any effort. So again, this point of freedom, this point of choice that you need to make, apparently, is not to desire spirituality or to desire egoistic, that B'china Dalet, that state of judgment. As you all described before, we're already placed in those states. It's like we're lifted like a puppet and put here and then lifted again and moved around here. That's not the state that's in your hands. But choosing to connect to that environment that will influence me, that will think of our natural environment, right? Think about it for a second. What are you exposed to just on a regular basis without making any efforts, right? How many ads are you exposed to a day? Promoting this new phone and this new car and this new flight and this new vacation and this new washing machine. How many things are we bombarded with every second of the day? I read once some research that shows that we're exposed to 3,000 ads a day. I don't see how it's possible, but that's what the research shows. Everywhere you look, even if you don't consciously see it, but when you're driving, you see ads everywhere, and on the internet you see ads pop up all the time. You don't even notice it anymore, but it's entering our system. It's influencing us all the time. And what Rabash is saying here is saying, great, ads work for a reason, because we're social beings. We're influenced by everything that we're exposed to. Rabash is saying, don't just let yourself be thrown into constant egoistic environment. Choose, connect to an environment that will promote to you attributes of bestowal, the importance, the quality of bestowal. And he says that this is the only way, the only thing that one can do. And when a Kabbalist writes the only thing, it's not a figure of speech, and it's not an approximation or some theory. It is written from a state of attainment, of experience, of him actually doing, practicing that mechanism that I described before. So he writes this out of attaining that state. And at that time, he writes at the end, he has the choice of who will be in charge. And that's, I think, one of the takeaways from here. One of them. That is, we don't choose to be in that state of judgment, meaning that descent, or to be in an ascent. We can't choose that. If you're feeling in that state of descent, you can't just choose to, snap out of it. You have to create an environment for yourself that will assist you in snapping back out of it. And doing so isn't jumping back and forth. It's not that you're, going from one state to the next and then back again and then back again and then back again. No. Every time that you experience that state of darkness, as long as you see that as an opportunity, as a lift, an elevator for the next spiritual degree, and you cling to it by placing yourself in an environment that will provide you with the greatness, the importance, the potential of the spiritual states, then you rise to the next degree. So it's not like this. You could say it's more like this. Every time the darkness seemingly is greater, but it's not really greater. It's just that in comparison to the previous degree, the potential to contain light grows. And that potential, before it's realized, it's felt as the opposite, because it's felt through the egoistic desire. Alright, so I hope I didn't confuse you guys too much. The video is here on YouTube, so you can watch it again if needed, about the mechanism. I think the takeaway, I gave one takeaway before, that the point of freedom is not choosing the state of descent or ascent, but the point of freedom is choosing to place yourself, to connect to an environment, books, authors, lessons, community, people that value this quality of spiritual evolution, of spiritual development. So do we have any questions here? I see a lot of your comments. Let's see what we have here. Okay, I have a document here with questions. Let me grab it open. Okay, here it is. Paul is saying, Jacob's ladder. Okay, what comes up must fall down. The netto gain is consciousness. The gain is, you can call it consciousness. Yes, I guess you could call it that. Although it's not really. Consciousness has a lot of definitions in this world. What you gain is an expanded vessel. The ability to contain more light. The ability to be containing more light is being an equivalence to that quality. What you gain is becoming more and more like that infinite force of reality, the infinite force of nature. You become less like the egoistic force of our world, which paints the picture of our reality, and more like this quality of infinite fulfillment and light. David Petrov is asking, can you please define each degree, naming them? Sure, no problem. Let's quickly do that. So there are, like I said, 125 degrees, and David is asking if I can name them. So the spiritual world is built of 5 worlds. Adam Kadmon, Atzilut, Beriah, Yetzirah, and Asiya. Okay, so this is 5 worlds. Now, every world is built also are 5 worlds, etc. And these worlds are also the same: Adam Kadmon, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiyah. And every one of those worlds is also built of 5 worlds. There's no room here, but you get the point. And they're also called Adam Kadmon, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiyah. So, for those of you who are quick at maths, what you get here is 5 times 5 times 5. 5 to the power of 3 is 125 spiritual degrees. So, Asiyah of Asiyah of Asiyah is the first degree, and so on. Okay. David's asking, is there a limit to how big the vessel can be? The limit is actually not completely known. Kabbalists talk about the final correction, the 125th degree, but they also talk about states beyond that, beyond the final correction. It's not described much anywhere, other than the fact that there are states beyond it. They call it the 7th and 8th thousand. That's all I can say. Francine is asking, don't I have a choice how I handle these states? Yes, you do. In that, you do have a choice. How do you handle them? Well, actually, I would say partially. Because imagine you're in that state of ascent, right? And you have everything inside, all of those drives and everything. You can only choose there. You can choose how you use it. You can choose that. But that comes from, I would say, learning about the principles of spiritual development. In the beginning, people use this awakening to inspire themselves, and later on they learn that they need to use these awakenings, not that they need, but that it will take them higher if they use these awakenings to inspire others in the spiritual development. And in a state of descent, if you're detached from everything, it would be similar to having an illness and then going to study medicine to cure your own illness. That would be similar. It's possible to do, but it's very unlikely that you'll succeed. Instead, if you go to a doctor who's already experienced this and he knows what to do, then he can quickly identify what you have and he can bring you back. So here, that would resemble what Kabbalist Rabash writes about choosing that, connecting to that environment. That's like a doctor. In that is already the potential, the next state of your development. And if you connect to that, then you're saving yourself a lot of pain and time. Kevin is saying separation from bestowal. Yes, correct. Daniel is asking, you mean accepted? I'm not sure what you're referring to, but if you're asking about accepting the state of darkness, then I don't know what you mean by accept it. Because if accept it means I crawl into my bed and cry, for example, sometimes that happens too, but that's not accepting it. Accepting it means that you accept that this state is given to you as potential to evolve further. Okay. I want to take a few more minutes. The questions here are great, and whatever I didn't have a chance to answer now, then please write it in the comment section, and I will answer the comment section. But I want to take a few minutes, and I want to share with you something very special that was created based on these authentic Kabbalistic principles. So, one of the takeaways was that you need to connect to a place that will impart you those qualities of bestowal. So we built a place like that. I mean, we try and make it exactly according to the Kabbalistic principles. I think we have success in it because we have a teacher that guides us, and we have the authentic texts that guide us, and we have the students that are in this environment that respond to us, that respond and give feedback. So I think the environment that exists already, which is Kabbu, is the place where you can plant that spark of yours. If you want to follow Rabash's advice, and if you want to connect to that environment. So I want to tell you a little bit about Kabbu and what's in it and how to join it. So the first thing that's in Kabbu is authentic Kabbalah. Unlimited access to all of the Kabbu courses. Learning path, we have a learning path of a 4-semester process that lasts 20 weeks that will give you all of the fundamentals and even intermediates a little bit, guided by instructors who are answering the forums and live Q&A with Tony. This is a course with Tony Kozenak, some of you might know. Everything's available in MP3, MP4, transcript. Now, the reason why we did, by the way, MP3, MP4, etc., downloadable, is so you can download them, so you can connect to them, if you want, when you're on a jog. That's what I do sometimes. If you're driving, or if you're on a flight, or if you want to print it out and you like reading, then you can even read the transcripts of all the courses. The purpose here is to create that environment that will quickly bounce you from that state of darkness to a state of awakening. So that's what you have inside of Kabbu. You also have a place to nurture that point, because a fundamental part of a spiritual environment is connection with the students and connection with instructors. And for that we have a weekly Zoom session that's happening actually right now in 3 minutes. We're going to be having our Zoom session with the Kabbu students, with all of the students that are in Kabbu are they're going to be joining and asking questions, and the instructors rotate every week. It's a great setting. It's a great environment. Of course, we want to make it easy, so you get this with a 14-day free trial. Now, sometimes we get comments like, I'm going to talk about money in a second, and sometimes we get comments like, how dare you charge for spirituality? Well, I just want to say to all those people, if you can find a better way, if you can donate, for example, to that person that has complaints, $10 million or $1 million, then no problem. You can give it all this out for free. Unfortunately, no one has done that yet, and we need to cover the costs of maintaining such an environment, and then we charge money for it. Of course, we're a non-profit, so every dollar that goes in, goes in back into the environment, back into developing more content, more videos, more courses, more potential for spiritual development. So just to get a frame of reference, if you would find similar products online, and I encourage you to try do so if you think these numbers are wrong, then the courses we have in Kabbu, you'd pay approximately $1,000 for. If you search for similar products online, the environment, the Zoom sessions, etc., would cost a lot more. I'm talking about annually. You would pay $2,400 a year. And again, if these numbers don't look right to you, I encourage you to search online for similar things, and you'll see that these are the prices. So we're not charging $3,400 a year for this. We're not, because we don't need to. We can charge a lot less and cover our costs and maintain the environment and make it affordable for every person that wants to. So in order to join, it's $19 a month. Or if you want to subscribe annually, then it's $119 a year, which is less than $10 a month, $9.90 a month, and you get access to everything, to all of the courses, to the learning path, all the materials, the Zoom sessions, the instructors in the forums, everything for $9.90 a month if you subscribe for a year, or $19 a month if you subscribe month by month. And of course, you sign up for a 14-day free trial. So you can sign up right now and not pay $1, pay $0, and in 14 days only you'll be charged, or if you cancel it before 14 days, then you won't be charged. So we really try to make this as affordable as possible on the one hand, on the other hand, enough that we can maintain the system and develop it. So if you're not yet in KBU, if you're not yet part of this environment, part of this community, then I really encourage you to at least try it out. It's free to try out for 14 days, so you really have no risk whatsoever. And I'd be really happy to see you there inside. And if you do, then you can join the KBU Zoom sessions, which I'm going to go into right now. And I'd love to see you there. And I'll say that it's not your regular online community. It's that same environment that Rabash spoke of that can help you bounce from the state of darkness to the state of ascent, the state of mercy, it's called. Rachamim, the state of mercy. So hopefully we'll see you there together. And actually, I have one more quick announcement about our Kabbalah retreat. So for those of you who don't know, on the 1st to 3rd of October, we have a retreat. This location is only partially correct. Yes, it is in the Iroquois Springs in the Catskill Mountains, but it's not only there, it's also from the comfort of your own home. We're having a hybrid event of connection, 3 days of immersion. If we said that KBU is a lift, then this is like a rocket, because it's 3 days of immersion with other students who also want to develop spirituality. 3 days. If you come there physically, it's beautiful Catskills Mountains of New York. And if you're in America and you can make it, then I would definitely recommend coming. But if you're outside of America and you can't come physically, then we're creating a hybrid event. Everything's going to be broadcasted. We're going to have big screens in the room. You'll be able to fully participate, to ask questions, to be in the workshops, to take the walks with us. You'll be with us when we have a bonfire in the evening by putting up 2 big screens and having you interact with us. Everything is built for a hybrid event. So if you can make it physically, definitely do. But if you can't, then we're going to make sure that you don't skip a beat. So that's the retreat, and you'll find links for both becoming a KBU member and for the KBU retreat. I'll be there, by the way. I'll be in the Catskills Mountains. I mean, hopefully, unless some new wave of corona takes place or flights are cancelled. But if not, then I'll be there, and I'll see those of you who are coming there, and I'll see those of you who are connecting virtually. And I'm super excited about this, and I know that those who are signing up, who have already signed up, are too. So hopefully we'll see you there. So I'm Gil Shir. This was Kabbalah Explained Simply. If you enjoyed the session, if you found it valuable, then please just click that subscribe button, subscribe to our channel, like the session, share it with your friends or people you think might be interested. And we'll see you all in the Zoom session right now. And for those of you who aren't in the Zoom, then we'll see you guys next week. See you later.